For the ride, and also glad to welcome our first guest of the week. You know him well. Joel Anand, Samy joins us. He is host of America's Roundtable, that radio program that can be found right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and co-founder of the International Leaders Summit. Joel, thank you for your time. Good morning.
Good morning, Richard. It's great to be with you all at SuperTalk Mississippi Media.
Always appreciate your time. There is a lot going on, both at home and abroad. Let's start internationally. We were talking before the break a little bit about some of the developments in Israel with Hezbollah and Lebanon, and the role that Iran is playing in this as well. And let's just start with kind of the military strategy that has gone into place. It has been truly remarkable to watch the last week or so the way that Israel has, in a very calculated way, carried out the elimination of basically the entire leadership of the Hezbollah organization.
Absolutely, Richard. And if I could just preface our time together here this morning by relaying what President Ronald Reagan said. He basically stated about the importance of the peace through strength principled policy. And he communicated that peace through strength, maintaining that, is so vital. Otherwise, weakness certainly invites aggression. And so what we've seen for decades is that, there have been times in history where we've implemented peace through strength, and that made a big difference. But as we look at what happened over the past 12 days in the Middle East and what Israel has done is remarkable. In fact, Hezbollah, the group that was targeted just this past week, what we realized happened is that they were very involved in actually adversely affecting Americans as well. We have to remember that on October 23, 1983, actually what happened is that a truck bomb actually blew up at the U.S. Marine barracks site in Beirut and killed over 240 of our own U.S. military personnel, Marines. And then we just had one after the other. This is probably one of the most dangerous terrorist groups that we can think of in modern history.
Joel, one of the things that to me is very interesting, last week with the UN convening in New York, there was a call for peace, a call for an immediate ceasefire. I think they were looking at a 21-day ceasefire. President Biden and other Western nations calling for that immediately. And I certainly understand that because of the potential destabilization in the region, and if Iran becomes more involved, and what does that mean with China, and what does that mean with Russia, and does that take us to the brink of a third world war? But the flip side of that debate is the Israelis should be able to defend themselves, and they have been attacked and attacked and attacked, and it's as if they finally said, enough, this is what we've been preparing for, and now is our time.
Absolutely. In fact, if we remember what happened on October 6th, there was of 2023, there was a ceasefire in place. And Hamas broke that ceasefire on October 7 when it attacked Israel, went into Israeli sovereign territory, killed 1,200 people, injured 5,000 individuals, and took 240 people into Gaza, into the tunnels, including babies and children. We heard about the devastating impact whereby babies were burnt alive, individuals were beheaded. Now, this is Hamas terrorist group. And Hezbollah on October the 8th started firing missiles unprovoked. So to call for a ceasefire, it's basically like the world saying to America after September 11, 2001, we want you to stay put and not do anything to go after Osama bin Laden, who could have then done more harm to America. And in fact, I think it's important for us to realize is that Israel is not just doing themselves a great work by eliminating this terrorist group or eliminating its leaders and commanders like Nasrallah, who for 40 years has been not just only a thorn to America, but to not to only Israel, but to America as well. And when we think about the list that you shared in the previous segment of all the various commanders killed on the Hezbollah side, those are individuals that are on the U.S. terrorist list as well. So they did a great favor to us by eliminating this tremendous threat to Israel, to the Middle East countries, and to America. And one of the disconcerting things that we heard, and it was published in the Financial Times over the weekend, was the fact that Israel was going to actually get rid of Nasrallah just days after October 7, 2023. However, the Biden-Harris administration told them to stand down. So, the question that is to be asked is the Biden administration helping or hampering Israel to eliminate terrorists? And that is a serious concern as we look at, the days to come and what Israel could do.
Certainly, we have concern with all of the alphabet organizations that exist in the United States, whether we're talking about the CIA or the FBI, et cetera, and the leadership of those groups that seems to be political in nature. I'm wondering, though, historically, there has been a sometimes tense, but usually working relationship that has existed between the CIA and Mossad, the intelligence agency in Israel. What do you think that relationship is like now?
I think at the professional level, when you have various intel communities working in the region, there has been an unprecedented level of cooperation. That's what our sources are sharing with us in the Middle East. So whether it's even the Saudi intel community or Bahrain, UAE and Bahrain, as you know, are part of the Abraham Accords. And we have to remember that on April 12, 2024, Iran actually fired over 300 missiles, rockets, and drones, an unprovoked attack toward Israel. First time ever in Iran's history that it directly attacked Israel. And at that time, we saw Gulf states step in and actually take down some of those projectiles that were headed towards Israel. So I think that there is this level of cooperation. However, I think one of the things that is concerning, or actually should be disconcerting to all of us, is the fact that we have an administration, the Harris-Biden administration, if you want to call it, that is really hampering efforts for Israel to finish the job. In fact, when Israel wanted to go into Gaza, or specifically into Rafah, they were holding them back. And that was a crucial period of time for Israel to get the work done. And so what we see today is that Israel is making progress in Gaza. It's been effective in what it's doing in Beirut, but we still have a long ways to go. Hezbollah is still a dangerous terrorist organization. We don't know who's going to come up within the ranks. And that could be a serious challenge for not only Israel, but for America, because they still have over 100,000 missiles that could be aimed towards Israel or to Europe, and who knows where else.
It is fascinating to see, as you mentioned a second ago, the Gulf states finally saying, no, that's enough, when the missiles were state-sponsored missiles by Iran, when in actuality, Hezbollah, Hamas, other terrorist groups that we're talking about, they're just acting as proxies for Iran anyway. They're funded, but it's like, okay, well, whose name is on the letterhead? And, well, okay, Iran, your name was here. Now we're going to take this seriously. But when it's somebody else's name, but you're doing it behind the scenes, it's not as big of an issue.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you're exactly right. The elephant in the room is none other than Iran. Iran has really obtained billions of dollars since the Biden-Harris administration came into power. They have been very lax on enforcing the sanctions, which allowed them to sell oil in the black market. We have also seen billions of dollars given to the Iranian regime, and they basically disperse these funds to the Houthis, the Hamas, the Hezbollahs, the Syrian militia groups, all of these groups which are attacking Israel. So yes, Iran is the main culprit, and certainly we need to do more than just to cordon Iran. And on that point of Iran, as we think about it as the greatest threat for the region wants to move forward. People want to embrace peace and prosperity in the region. They don't want these endless wars in their community, in their backyard. And if we look at what is happening in Iran today, let's remember what President Reagan did in the 1980s when the attacks killed Marines. Actually, at that time, President Reagan gave orders, and half of the Iranian naval fleet was destroyed. And so that's peace through strength. That's sending a loud message. What has the Biden-Harris administration done? They've basically given billions of dollars to prop up a failed state in the Middle East.
We will, you good to hang for just a couple more minutes?
Absolutely, Richard.
Visiting with Joel Anand Samy. He is host of America's Roundtable. We will bring the conversation back to the United States. We've got a vice presidential debate tomorrow night with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. Two very different people in terms of not only what they believe, but the way they talk. What's that debate going to look like? What do we need to be watching for tomorrow night? We will pick that up when we come back with Joel Anand Samy. This is the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi. Quick break. We're back with you right after this. Back with you on the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us on this Monday morning, continuing our conversation with Joel Anand Samy. He is host of America's Roundtable, radio program that you can get right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Joel, certainly good visiting with you this morning. Let's turn our attention back to the United States, more domestic. We have that vice presidential debate tomorrow night, the one and only, with Tim Walz on the Dem side and J.D. Vance on the Republican side, obviously on the tickets of Harris and Trump, respectively. There is quite a contrast in these two men.
Absolutely.
In
there is
every way imaginable.
Exactly. You've said it right, Richard. And in that case here, certainly I think that what we will see is that each of these candidates will certainly try to present not just only their policies, but also call into question what, for example, J.D. Vance may do is to call into question the Biden-Harris or the Harris administration's track record over the past 4 years, and perhaps even bring about questions about even Governor Walz's governorship in Minnesota. We remember, for example, in the summer of 2020, where there was a $500 million worth of damages due to the riots that took place in May of 2020. And there were two individuals that died due to the protest-related issues there. There were a great number of arrests. 150 properties were burned down. And Governor Walz was very slow to respond. So I think J.D. Vance will certainly have an opportunity to raise that question about governance in that respect. And, of course, the key topics that will probably come up is the economy and immigration.
People are focusing in on an announcement from CBS News. The debate will be hosted by Norah O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan, and CBS announced that they will not fact-check either candidate, that Walz and Vance will be responsible for fact-checking each other, one another, during the debate. Maybe that's good because the whole thing might turn into a big fact-checking mission for the debate moderators. What do you make of this on the heels of what we saw in the presidential debate where Donald Trump was routinely fact-checked and Kamala Harris was allowed to pretty much say what she wanted without any repudiation?
Well, I think the American people are very wise when they watch these debates. They are wise when they see moderates actually interjecting themselves on one side or the other. And as we saw in the previous debates, we've seen how individuals that represent a more biased media certainly prop up one or play defense in that respect. And in the case of CBS, if you've noticed both of these key anchors, when they question individuals on the center-right, on the Republican side, there is more of an antagonistic approach and more of an aggressive stance that they take rather than the softball questions that they asked to candidates or individuals on the other side, on the center-left. So we will certainly see how both of these individuals from CBS moderate the conversation, the discussion, but I'm a bit skeptical that they will play a referee. As we look at sports, we want to see a referee do a good job in making sure they keep both sides accountable and state the calls as they are. But if they decide to play on the other side's team, that becomes certainly an unfair situation.
Joel, one of the things that you mentioned just a second ago that likely will be a topic is immigration. With immigration, border security, an interesting contrast going on right now. You have the issue at the southern border in the United States where some are absolutely for a border wall and increased border security. It feels like the Democrats want to just roll out a red carpet for anybody that is coming across. Doesn't matter if they've been convicted of violent crimes or not. But we contrast that with what's happening right now in some European countries where they are doubling down on border security and saying, no, you will not come across. It really is fascinating. It's almost like borders matter.
Absolutely. Well, Europe has been experiencing this since the mid 2000s, actually, and then later on in the 2010s, then when they had this invasion coming in from all parts of the world into Europe, and when Merkel opened the doors. And now, as you see within Germany, the basically the parties that are opposed to illegal immigration are winning. Not only in Germany, but this past weekend we saw in Austria, where a far-right party, and this is a bit more of a extreme party rather than just your typical party. They have roots to the SS, which is unfortunate, but they took a stance of being against immigration in Austria. But when we look at what's happening in America today, we're facing not just only a surge of illegal immigrants, we're facing an invasion. When you have within 4 years over 10 million individuals, and actually now we're getting reports from the government that there are several thousand individuals that were actually known for raping, for criminal activities, they're coming into our country. So can you imagine the kind of pressure that it applies onto local communities and towns that cannot even actually embrace this number of people coming in, just like we've heard in Colorado or in other states like in Ohio. Yeah. America's heartland is really being adversely affected. So immigration is a serious concern.
Joel, we're out of time. I appreciate so much your time this morning. Joel, Anand, Samy from America's Roundtable. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you so much, Richard. Great to be with you all on SuperTalk Mississippi Media.
We've got more coming up. The news is next. This is The Gallo Show on SuperTalk Mississippi.